We got a new beehive. Look at this. Beautiful. Oh, it smells good as well. Hey everyone, my name's Alex and today I'm going to be putting together a new beehive. The beehives that you see, the wooden boxes that beekeepers have, they're only a very recent invention in the grand scheme of things. People have been keeping bees for about 10,000 years, like actually looking after them for honey production. But bees have been around for a lot longer than that. I think bees have been knocking around for about 100 million years. So if you look at this timeline that I've put together, you can see that humans haven't been keeping bees that long. But I guess that before humans were keeping bees in boxes, we were still harvesting honey, most likely by going into a wild nest and sticking our hands in and grabbing out some of the honeycomb. I imagine getting stung quite a lot in the process. But humans would have done it like bears do it now. But in a similar way that humans decided to start cultivating plants and do farming, they also realized that they could probably get their hands on honey easier if they kept bees in a more like farm animal way. Bee farming practices have come a long way in recent times. People have designed and created many different types of beehives, and they've actually cultivated different strains of bees so that they have desirable traits like that they don't sting you as much, and they produce more honey, and they're resilient to diseases. Now, I've been doing some history research recently, and I guess a big leap forward was made in around the 1800s when a guy called Mr. Langstroth, he invented a type of beehive which included movable frames. So you could actually take the frames out and move them. Now this is the type of beehive that I have been using for the past 3 years and what pretty much every beekeeper uses in the world these days because it's so practical. It's made up of a box with 10 or so wooden frames in, and the comb is kept within the parameters of the wooden frame, meaning that you can pull out the whole comb. This opens up many possibilities for the beekeeper. It's easier to inspect the bees during swarm season and check for queen cells being built. It allows the beekeeper to take out and move the frames around, combine with other hives, and make swarm control manipulations. And when it comes to honey harvesting, the honey frames can simply be removed and placed into a spinning extractor. The movable frame hive has also allowed beekeepers to harvest crazy amounts of honey. I read a book by a guy called Ormond. In fact, I might have it on my bookshelf over here. There we go. This is a proper old beekeeping book. Mastering the Art of Beekeeping by Ormond and Harry Aby. I'm not sure if that's exactly how you say it. Anyway, this is a really interesting book about a guy who's trying to harvest the record amount of honey from a beehive. In 1974, Ormond managed to harvest 404 pounds of honey. That's 183 kilograms of honey from one beehive. I think other people may have beaten that amount since, but just to put things into perspective, when I harvested honey from my bees last year, I thought I had a really good season. From one beehive, I harvested about 40 kilograms. This guy Ormond got over 180 kilograms. Look, there's a picture on the back of one of his beehives. Those are all honey boxes on top. It must have been so unstable. Now there's a few different varieties of hive, all based on the Langstroth movable hive design. There's hives with different dimensions, some which are slightly bigger than others, some which are slightly wider than others. But the type of beehive that I use, and what I think most people in the UK use, is called a national hive. Now the national size is, I think, 460mm by 460mm. That's like the dimensions of the boxes that you use. So when I go and buy new equipment, I always get national size stuff. Does that make sense? It's sort of just interchangeable, compatible. Now, just recently, I very kindly got given some new beekeeping equipment by a company called National Bee Supplies. They're based down in Devon, which is only like an hour or two from here. But they actually make all their equipment down in Devon here in the UK, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to unbox some of the equipment now, and we're going to build and put together a beehive. And I hope that by putting together a beehive from the floor up, you can get an idea of the different parts of a beehive and how they fit together. Right, let's get this box. Now this is a large box of beekeeping stuff. I'll explain all the different parts in a second. Like, this might look a bit confusing currently, but all will be explained soon. Box. And some of it hasn't even been put together yet, so I'm gonna have to do some woodwork. I say woodwork, not proper woodwork. Basically flat pack style woodwork. This here and these bits of wood are the roof of the beehive. Now when you buy beehives, you can buy them ready-made, like ready assembled, or flat packed. They're obviously cheaper if you buy them flat packed. And if you like to do a bit of woodwork and doing things yourself, then you might as well get them flat packed. And if you're good at woodwork, you don't even need to buy beehives at all. You can buy the wood and build the beehives yourself. I made some of these small beehives and I'm sure they will work. Like, they'll work just fine. They're just not perfect. They're not as well made with nice wood, and they just don't fit together as nice as ones made professionally, like these. And when you buy beehives, you also normally get nails that come with them. So I've got to just nail in this together. Got two different sizes of hammer. So I've nailed together this square box. I've got to put these supporting pieces in now. So there's these little air vents here and here, and they line up with the air vents in the roof. It goes like that. Fits nice and snug in there. Now I've just got to hit some more nails in to secure the metal in place. After all that banging, we have a hive roof. You can see the ventilation slots there and there. And these have beautiful joins at the sides. Like, they're really, real nice. Right, let's put together the beehive, starting with the floor. This is what the beehive sits on. This goes on the hive stand, and then the rest of the hive is built up on top. Now, this is an open mesh hive floor, which basically means that there's a mesh here which allows air to go through and also allows things to drop from the hive out. This one has a tray. Now, this isn't kept under the hive at all times, but it comes in handy because the hive floor is open. It means that you can use this tray to track what's going on inside the hive. For example, if you want to check how many mites are in the hive, you slide this tray under. In some hives, it's a piece of wood, but it can basically be anything that goes underneath the open mesh floor. You leave that tray under there for about a week. Mites will fall off the bees and onto the tray, and then you can count how many mites are on the tray. I've done this a few times throughout the winter when I want to know how many mites there are and whether I need to then treat the bees to get rid of the mites. Most of the time, this tray isn't in the hive. And without that tray, it means that air can pass through really easily. And airflow is really important in a beehive because you don't want it to be damp. The bees need it to be dry so that they can actually dry out the honey when they're collecting it. You've got this extra bit of wood here. This is the entrance block. Now, if you placed it in this way, it would mean that bees can't get in and out at all. But if you place it this way, you can see now there's a little entrance. Bees can go in and out of there. As well as that, you can take it out completely, and then the bees have the whole thing to enter. It will make more sense when I put the brood box on top. So this is the brood box, and here you can see the entrance is that big. And then you put the entrance block in, like this, and it's smaller. So at different times of year, you can make the entrance larger or smaller. You can also put bits of foam into the entrance to then make the entrance smaller. Basically, last summer, when the bees were really active, collecting loads of nectar, I didn't have this block in at all because I wanted maximum amount of bees to be able to come in and out. I didn't want them queuing up to get in. However, in the autumn time, when there's lots of wasps about, which are trying to enter the hive and steal the honey, you want to make that entrance smaller. So I put in the entrance block like this. And the bees can guard their hive a lot easier when you've got the entrance smaller. So the entrance block, although it is just a piece of wood, it does have an important purpose at controlling the size of the entrance. You can also get all sorts of different gadgets which go onto the entrance to stop things like mice getting in, and also special wasp entrances, so wasps are less likely to enter. So yeah, this is the brood box. It's called the brood box because this is where the brood are. The brood consists of the baby bees, the eggs, and the queen. Now inside here fit, I think, 11 frames or 12 frames, and frames look like this. I'll quickly show you how a beehive frame can be put together. Now again, it's flat packed, so everything is cut to size, ready to just put together. So the different pieces include a top bar. This is the top section that you hold on to, and then the side bars, and then the bottom sort of supports, 2 of them. I've got some frame nails, and then the all-important foundation. Now this is basically beeswax. As you can see, a sheet of beeswax, the perfect size that fits into the frame. These are wired. Now you can get unwired, but I believe that the wired stuff is just slightly stronger. It's got these wires that go the whole way through it. And this goes inside the frame and acts as sort of a starter for the bees to work on. You're basically making life for the bees a little bit easier by giving them this whole piece of wax to start with. You take your top bar, you break off the little wooden section, you grab the 2 side pieces, and you got to make sure that the little notch is on the inside because that's where the wax will slide into. These slot into the top bar. Sometimes it takes a little bit of jiggling. You can give it a knock with the hammer just to make it slide into place. And then the 2 bottom pieces complete the frame. These also just slide in really neatly. Now, although it does kind of hold together quite nicely as it is, it's still a good idea to put nails in the whole way around. Once the frame is nailed in place, you can then grab your piece of wax and slide it in. And then once it's nearly at the bottom, you bend these bits of metal at the bottom over, slide it the whole way down, and then this first bit of wood that I took out, this goes back into place. And then you nail the nails in. These are the hardest nails to get in because you have to kind of hold the frame at an angle and hammer them in diagonally. And there we go. Simple as that. We've got a frame to put in the beehive. Oh, I just love the smell of wood and wax put together. It just smells so good. So I have a selection of frames that I have been making. Oh gosh, no. Oh dear. These frames go inside like this. So in this hive we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 frames. You could fit one more frame in here. However, from my previous experience, it's actually better to put one of these in. This is a dummy board. It's basically the same size as a frame, but it's not a frame. It's just sort of a gap filler. So this goes in here. By having a bit of space here, allows you to take the frames out a bit easier. If you tried to cram another frame in there, it would be really hard to get out. And one of my hives currently, I have 12 frames and it's just really hard to remove. So it's good to have a dummy board instead. Makes taking and moving the frames around easier. Now some beekeepers have the brood box this way around and some people have it that way around. There's two different ways. Frames are facing the direction of the entrance and then this way they're going against the entrance. I've had beekeepers tell me to do it like this and then some beekeepers telling me I should do it like that. I don't really know. I currently have my hives like this. If you have any suggestions or ideas about this, let me know in the comments. It would be interesting to know. Now if you look closely, you can see that each frame has a flat side and a pointy side. And this helps space the frames the correct distance apart. If these gaps here were too big, then the bees would build like wild comb in between, which wouldn't be good. And if these gaps were too small, the bees would propolize it together. But everything is sort of set the correct distance apart. Now moving on, we have an interesting piece of equipment called a queen excluder. Now the gaps in this mesh here are large enough for worker bees to get through. They can easily pass through this and go from this box above into the other boxes. However, the queen can't get through that. The queen is too big, the queen is slightly larger. I have heard instances where small queens have managed to get through, but I've never had this happen. Basically, you want to keep the queen in this bottom box. If the queen gets above this box into the honey boxes, the queen may lay eggs within the honey. So this queen excluder goes on top of the hive. So the queen now can't pass through and we can put on the honey boxes. So I've got a couple of these honey boxes. They're called supers actually. Super, I learnt, comes from the word superfluous, which means extra. So these supers hold the surplus honey. You might be wondering why these are plastic wrapped. Now there's a good reason for this. These honey boxes here I used last season. They were on the beehives, they filled it with honey, I then extracted the honey, and then when I put them into storage, I froze them, so put them in the freezer for like a day. This kills off wax moth, and then to stop more wax moth getting in, I then wrap it all with plastic. What is a wax moth? It's a little moth which, whilst it's in its larval stage, can destroy the wax frames. Now I didn't do this last winter, and as you can see here, my frames got a little bit eaten, which was not a nice sight. The bees go to all this effort to build the frames up, and then for them to be eaten by the wax moth, it's not ideal at all. So my current way of getting around this is to freeze the frames in a chest freezer and then wrap them up. So here we go. Gosh, I wish you could smell the room right now. It smells so strong of honey. It's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. And there's no signs of wax moth. These are just beautiful creations. They draw out the comb and store all the honey in here. You can actually see some leftover pollen in there too. But basically what I wanted to show you was that these supers go on top of the queen excluder like that. And then in this box here is where the bees will store the honey. Now inside a honeybee's nest, naturally, they will always have the brood at the bottom and then the honey at the top. So they naturally live down there, and then throughout the summer when they're finding more and more honey, they build up and then they keep all the excess honey in here until the end of the year where I come along like a bear and take some of it. Now I've been wondering why the super is smaller than the brood box for a while. It didn't make much sense to me because I thought, well, surely you want the honey boxes to be as big as possible so you can have as much honey in there as possible. But I did realise last year that when one of these boxes is full of honey, it weighs so much. Like if this was much bigger and you had loads of these boxes to lift full of honey, it would probably break your back. And I believe that is the reason for honey supers being, in general, smaller than brood boxes. But to be honest, I feel quite young and healthy right now. So this year, I might actually try putting brood boxes as the supers. So if the bees fill them up, they will be quite a lot heavier than these smaller boxes. So I might experiment with that this year. Now you can put on as many of these as you like. Now last year I had, I think, 4 of these honey supers on top of each other, and it's such a nice sight, and it feels great to be adding more and more of these boxes, and the beehive gets taller and taller throughout the summer, and you're just anticipating the honey harvest. Now if you watched one of my previous beekeeping episodes, you would have seen me trying to build some beekeeping equipment, and I did manage to build a load of these. This is called a crown board. It's basically a lid of a beehive with 2 holes in. This is like the top of the beehive. This goes on top like this, like so. Now the holes here in the top are for a couple of different things. Firstly, they are feed holes. You can put food on top of these. The bees can come through from the hive and feed. You can also put a little mechanism called a bee escape inside the hole, which is basically a one-way system for bees. The bees can go through one way, can't go back the other, and they are used when you're trying to get the honey off. So you actually put this board with the bee escapes under here, and then you close it off. Then the bees go down out of this box through the one-way system. They can't get back up, so then this box ends up empty of bees. Quite clever. That's what I did last year. It doesn't work 100% effectively. You still end up with quite a lot of bees in the top, but it does help get some of the bees out. And then on top of the lid, we can put the final thing, which is the roof. This is a fresh, brand new roof, which I made just now. And that goes on top, like that. Ta-da! We just put together a beehive. There's one thing missing. Some bees. And I'm very excited to announce that in a few weeks' time, I'm actually going to get some bees that I can put inside this box. I've been speaking with a bee farmer in Wales, and I'm going to drive up to his place in a few weeks' time and collect a colony of honeybees. Not just any old colony of honeybees. There's gonna be a very special queen bee in there as well. It's gonna hopefully bring some really good genetics into my beekeeping operation. So stay tuned for that beekeeping video, which will be coming soon. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned a bit about how a beehive is made. Thanks so much to National Bee Supplies for sorting me out with some wonderful new equipment, which I'm very excited to use, and I'm sure the bees will be happy to live in there too. See you soon, everyone. Bye.